Welcome to Leapfrog BI. My name is Paul Felix, and I'm going to be stepping you through this sample project video series. The goal of this project is to demonstrate how Leapfrog BI can be used to create a data mart. In this first video, we're going to talk on a high level about the Leapfrog BI workflow, and subsequent videos will focus on each of the steps in more detail. One thing that I think is important to explain up front is that Leapfrog BI is a metadata-driven tool. It's going to accept as its input metadata, or a profile of the source system. That metadata is then going to be manipulated as the developer actually defines the data mart. In the end, that definition is going to be deployed and the data mart will be created. Let's talk a little bit about what we're trying to accomplish here. The starting point is going to be your existing source systems or system. It could be a database, such as you see here, a nice transactional system. I'm going to be using the AdventureWorks sample database, or a small portion of the AdventureWorks sample database throughout this video series. You could be using one, two, or more source systems as your source for your data mart. In the end, we're going to end up with a star schema with the fact in the center and each of the dimensions describing those facts around the exterior. The last thing I want to mention before we start talking about the workflow is that Leapfrog BI does not replace the need to understand your business requirements and also to have a data model in place. Once you understand the business requirements and you do have a data model, then you can use Leapfrog BI to expedite the development process. Let's talk now about each of the steps in this workflow. We just reviewed the source system, and that's depicted in the lower left of this diagram. After the source has been identified and a model has been created, we can then begin profiling our source data. In this project, we're going to be using SQL Server Integration Services as our ETL tool. So the profile will also be created by SQL Server Integration Services. That profile is then fed to Leapfrog BI as a known good starting point. So now let's talk about the 5 component types that are included in Leapfrog BI. The first, to the far left, is the stage component. The stage component is a volatile staging area. Its purpose is only to move data from a source system to a known or reliable destination point. Once it's in that staging table, then we know that it is of the expected format. After the data has been staged, then we're going to move to a persistent staging area, or a PSA. And the PSA's purpose is to buffer the source system in the event of the need to do a full mart reload. We don't want to have to go back to our transactional systems or maybe to our flat files and reload all that data. So PSA is going to keep the history intact at all times. The next step is to, if needed, do a transformation. The transform component can do just about any type of transformation that you would typically need to do, such as pivoting, unpivoting, set operations, joins, filters, and so on. After you've transformed the data, then you can feed that into a dimension. And the dimensions, of course, are going to be the exterior of our star schema, or they're going to be the descriptors of our facts. Once the dimensions have been defined, then we can create our fact components. And the fact component is going to be measures that are related to some set of dimensions. And those are really the 5 primary component types that are in Leapfrog BI. There's also a connection component type, and that connection component type is exactly what you probably would imagine. It's just a connection. It can be used by any of these components and reused so that you don't have to manage a bunch of different connections. Finally, after you have created all the components or defined how you want your data mart to look, then you can deploy. In deploying, in this project, is going to mean that we're actually creating integration services packages that are then executed by integration services. And once they are executed, then we'll have a data mart in place. All of the different things that are required to maintain that data mart, such as incremental loading, the monitoring, all of that is also part of the Leapfrog BI toolset. So in the next few videos, we're going to focus on each of these components in a little more detail. We'll look for you there.